So our first team for the team previews is going to be Chicago. Right now, we're just taking a quick overview of the team, where they left off last season, what changes they made, who they brought in, who's out. And then we're going to talk about who we're projecting in specific tiers. And without further ado, let's start with the Chicago Blackhawks.
You're up, Nick.
Let's go.
All right. Well, last year they had 23 wins, 54 losses, and I'm not going to talk about the overtime losses because they don't count. Last year, they ranked 28th in the league in power play, 16.6% conversion rate. So we're not talking about a team that had a lot of fantasy stars, basically, right? When your power play is that low, it often means there's not that many people that could put the points in. Who's changed this year? I'll just mention that, and I'll drop it off to you guys.
Yep.
So who's in? Well, they added some top sixers in Bertuzzi and Teravainen. Teravainen coming back for a second stint with the Chicago Blackhawks. They also added some bottom-of-the-lineup players like Mikheyev, Maroon, TJ Brody, who couldn't crack Toronto's horrible defense, and a surprise in Laurent Brassois, who might be a sleeper, but we'll talk about that after. Who left is Tyler Radish, Tyler Johnson. They didn't like the Tylers anymore. Entwistle and Zaitsev signed in the KHL, if I'm not mistaken. And that's the end of the changes that occurred during the offseason. Obviously, it's a rebuilding year for Chicago.
Yeah.
They weren't expected to do much. I'm thinking that next year they want to be a little bit more competitive. So they brought in some more help for Bedard. Now,
I think they just want to put on the ice an NHL team, and not.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's for most. But listen, I'll go with the tiers. I'll start with the tiers and see where we have them ranked in the tiers, and then we can talk about the players that we have, basically. So the tier 1, like Nick said, 91 points or more, we have none on the Chicago Blackhawks. On tier 2, 80 to 90 points, we have Connor Bedard. Tier 3, 70 to 79 points, we don't have anybody rated there. Tier 4, 60 to 69 points, we have Taylor Hall, Tyler Bertuzzi, and Teravainen. So those are basically the players that we think are fantasy relevant, and then there's a few young ones that we might throw in. So, Junior, what do you think about Connor Bedard between tier 2?
I actually have him projected 82 game pace at 91 points.
Okay.
wow. So you think he's going to break at 91?
Yeah. He's he's better surrounded to start, so that helps. I mean, he doesn't have a 15-goal Khrushchev on his line. He might have a Bertuzzi or a Teravainen. Teravainen played with Aho his best hockey. I think Bedard is a little bit of an upgrade on Aho in terms of offensive ability. So I think on the power play, that's going to help a lot. I don't see how Teravainen doesn't get power play one time. Bedard had 22 goals, 39 assists, 61 points in 68 games last year. So that was a 74-point pace. If he can stay healthy and play a full 82 games, I think he could crack the 91 points. And I think what's going to happen, and this is obviously just a gut for this particular reasoning here, is everybody in Chicago is going to feel a bit rejuvenated. They're going out with an actual NHL lineup. These guys, people know their names. People can wear their jerseys and recognize who's on the ice. So they're going to come out and be like, okay, we have a bit of a purpose this year. We're not just playing to play. We're playing and we're going to try to win because we're all professionals. We're not just, And the GM went out to say the young guys were getting spots too easily. They weren't earning them. So they brought in all these NHLers so that these young guys earn their spot. So that creates a bit of competition. And I think the first couple of weeks, the first month is when you'll probably see Chicago get the most points because they're going to come out flying like that. A new season, new beginning.
I agree. Connor Bedard, he has a better chance this year of hitting 90 than he had, obviously, last year. I think Chicago made a point this year that they were going to bring in more offense because they were last in the league in goals scored. And they were last in the league in power play, if I'm not mistaken, 28th in the league. So I think the players they brought in. Listen, Taylor Hall was there, but he got injured 3 games in, so we don't know what impact he has. We can all say Taylor Hall is a phenomenal, has had a great career, bounced around here and there, but injuries has held him back. Now, is this the year where he's going to be healthy? In my opinion, if he stays healthy, I think he can. He's the one who can hit the tier 3, which is a 70 to 79 points. Just because he'll get the ice time, he'll get the power play 1 time. So and he's got that talent. He still has that talent. Even at 32 years old, he still has that talent. As for Tyler Bertuzzi and Teravainen, these guys, Tyler Bertuzzi, I looked up a stat for Tyler Bertuzzi. 50% of his goals come on the power play. So right there, the power play is going to go a bit higher this year than last year. So even if Tyler Bertuzzi scores 25 goals this year, half of those are going to be on the power play. Who's going to be playing on the power play? Connor Bedard's going to be playing on the power play. Seth Jones is going to be playing on the power play. Taylor Hall is going to be playing on the power play. So I feel just by the power play getting better, some of these players will get more points off of it. And Teravainen, it's the same thing as Tyler Bertuzzi. He's come in, he's proven he can play with good players in Carolina. I think his tier is 60 to 69. He hasn't gone, if I'm not mistaken. I think he had 1 season over 70 points, if I'm not mistaken. But I feel for Chicago, Taylor Hall is one guy who we have to watch to go into that can hit that tier 3. And the one player we don't have here, to me, who I think is going to have a breakout season, is Seth Jones. I think Seth Jones is going to benefit from these players coming into Chicago. He is already on the PP1. He is on the first pairing. He will get all those minutes. And Alec Martinez might not be fantasy related, but will help Seth Jones in that Seth Jones does not have to play in every single opportunity. Alec Martinez is a defensive player, defenseman. He can play on the shorthanded. It'll take a load off of Seth Jones, which will maybe turn into him concentrating more on his offense.
Well, so just to touch, sorry, I just wanted to finish up on Bedard because we spoke a lot about the power play, and I did project him at 91 points, which is a big jump from the projected 74 of last year at 82 game pace.
On pace for it.
Yeah. So I increased his power play points by 6 based off the new acquisitions and the NHL talent he'll have at his disposition for this season. So that alone boosted up his ranking, and there's also the natural progression of a generational player as well, right? Mm-hmm. So that was the reason for that.
So Bedard at 91, like you said, it is a little bit of a push, but do I expect him to do better than last season's 874 point pace? That's a big jump, and staying healthy is a big thing too. He's going to be 19 years old. So 19 years old in the NHL, how much has his body toughened up in order to play against men? But how impressive is it that last year every single team would put all their best defensive players against Bedard, and he still had a 74-point pace over 82 games.
And we can all agree he didn't have NHL caliber players around him on his line.
Him and Kurashev were maybe best friends, but other than that, I mean, Taylor Hall had an injury that basically kept him out. He only played 10 games.
At one point, Nick Foligno was on his line too.
Well, guys, just to your point, the most frequently used power play line last year for the Chicago Blackhawks was Nick Foligno, Tyler Johnson, Kurashev, and Connor Bedard.
It's not very good.
So now you change that
with, I guess, Seth Jones or...
Yeah. So now you change that to Hall, Bertuzzi, Teravainen. It becomes a little bit more dangerous.
Yeah. And the last game of the season, which Nazar played, he took Tyler Johnson's spot. So I'm curious to see what his progression is going to be. We'll touch on him later.
Yeah. Okay. So you were talking to me about Bedard. Basically, that's what I think. I think that he will hit the 80-point mark, maybe point per game next year. I don't know if he's going to stay healthy enough all season. Hopefully he does, because he's phenomenal to watch. Other than that, we spoke about Bertuzzi. We spoke about Taylor Hall. Well, just to give my thoughts on Bertuzzi is the type of player that only played 35% of the time on the power play in Toronto. Only 35% of the time. His bread and butter is the power play, but he only played 35%. He had an average time on ice on the power play of 1 minute and 38 seconds. That's not much for an entire game, right? His best season ever, which looks like an outlier more than ever, was 75-point pace.
Yeah, because he got injured.
That was Bertuzzi's best year, 75-point pace.
2021, 2022 with the Detroit Red Wings.
Which was, he didn't get injured. It was a COVID year.
Oh, it was a COVID year. Okay.
So
it was the second season.
Okay.
Second COVID season, exactly. That was his best outing. So he also had 180 shots compared to the 160. So in 68 games, he had 180 shots. This year, he played 80 games for Toronto. He had 160 shots. So it's amazing. If he shoots more, obviously, he's going to get more points. It's simple math, people. But I don't see him getting to 70. I don't see him getting to 70. I do see him improving on his 44 point pace last season and hitting the 60-point pace, and that's all because of Bedard. If he plays with Bedard, 5-on-5 especially, I see him doing that. So, did you have anything to add on Bertuzzi?
I have him at 49 points on an 82-game pace, which is an increase from last year.
But not okay.
And Bertuzzi stays relatively healthy. So, for me, I have him projected at 80 games played, 20 goals, 28 assists, 11 power play points. Last year, only 6 power play points. But
he only played 30.
He was on a power play unit with Austin Matthews, William Nylander, Marner, Tavares, and Riley. Who's touching the puck there? Bertuzzi's touching the puck if it bounces off the goalie and falls to his stick. With the Chicago Blackhawks, he might be touching the puck more, which is why I gave him more power play points, because he has no choice to touch the puck. But right? Like it's not like, okay, Nylander, Marner, you guys do your thing, Matthews, and then I'm just there to pick up the garbage.
No, he's going to be more involved.
He's going to be more involved in the Chicago power play, which is why I give him more points, and I expect an increase in productivity.
But still, your increase is only up to 49 instead of 44-point pace.
Right. It's not much. Because
so you only
5-on-5, he is who he is, right? He played with great players, and he's going to play with a great player. But
right. But you're projecting 91 for Bedard. How is he going to get to 91 if his line mate is only getting 45?
Bedard creates his own offense. Like, he played with Kurashev last year. Connor Bedard played with Kurashev maybe 90% of the time. 22 goals, 39 assists, 61 points. Kurashev at 18 goals, 36 assists.
Right, but that's Kurashev.
But that's what I'm saying.
My grandmother would have gotten those points playing with Bedard.
Come on.
But I'm not.
So Bertuzzi is more talented than Kurashev.
But they're different players.
True.
They're different players.
I'm just thinking that I still have him closer to the 60 points than the 50 points.
And also for
Bertuzzi, I think this is a great board bet, guys.
Actually, for Bertuzzi, the last thing I'll add, and then Vince, you can finish off because you started with him. I'm not convinced he plays with Bedard.
Taylor Hall's still there.
Not just that, but Kurashev's going to get the first shot, right? Because of the chemistry they had. And then they might add someone. That's my thinking is what if they keep Kurashev there? But I see Teravainen as a better fit with Bedard than Bertuzzi. But again, look, who knows, right? That's just projections.
Listen,
line projections.
For me, Tyler Bertuzzi, I think Toronto was a bad fit. Just because, first, he didn't get always power play one. And second, he had sharpshooters on that team. So when Austin Matthews scored 69 goals, most of the shots he took on the power play, there was no rebounds. They went in. Bertuzzi's bread and butter was rebounds, like the dirty goals. He goes into the dirty areas. Power play, you don't see Bertuzzi on the boards in the power play trying for a one-timer. You see him in front of the net getting those rebounds. With Toronto, whenever he was there, if it's not Matthews hitting the back of the net, it's Nylander hitting the back of the net. So I feel here he'll get a better opportunity on the power play because he lives on the power play, and there's less lethal shooters. So those dirty goals are going to come to him. So that's why I have him in the 60 to 69 points. And I feel it's on the power play is going to make the biggest difference. And also the pressure of not playing for a team like Toronto that had so much expectations. Chicago's expectations are little to none this year, right? They just want to be better than last year.
Yeah, you're speaking about non-tangibles.
Yeah, exactly, right? And Chicago in goals last year ranked 32nd.
Okay, let's move on to the next player if we all touch on each one of these players, we're going to be here for more than 25 minutes. Next player, we spoke about Taylor Hall a little bit already. He was injured. He is considered a Band-Aid boy. I mean, he's been injured his majority of his career, but they actually went there in order to get Taylor Hall, who was a former first overall pick, in order to mentor Bedard. Do we see Taylor Hall having a rebound season, or is it way too risky to predict that coming off a season where he only played 10 games?
I have him on an 82 game pace at 53 points, 23 goals, 21 assists. Look, he's only playing 68 games according to my calculations, my formula. Right, you can't really project more than that because of his history. I have him calculate for 11 power play points, 2 game winners. Look, it's very hard to project what Taylor Hall is going to do because A, we don't know if he's essentially going to play on the line with Bedard. Is that like out the window? Like, does he come back? Do they gradually bring him in? Are they going to want to balance the lines? He missed a full season, guys. That's a lot. A full season, practically. So I had a hard time projecting him, but based off his past, this is the formula I use. This is what I came up with. For Chicago's sake, because I think they could be a fun team to watch, I hope he stays healthy. And if he does stay healthy, he'll be productive. Taylor Hall's a productive player.
Anything to add on that? I have nothing to add. I think that's well said.
Listen, he's if you take his games played with the amount of years he played in the NHL, he's scheduled to play 60 games next year. Okay, at 60 games, if he plays,
excuse me,
I still think with him, like you said, it's all about the injuries. Also, how he recovered from his injury, right? So they're saying he's on the right path. They're saying he's already skating. He actually practiced.
He's going to have a full off season.
Yeah. He actually practiced with the team last year. So I think he's after Bedard. I think he's the most talented player on the Chicago Blackhawks team. So I still think he's in the tier 3. But if he plays 82 games or even hits the 80 games, I think he can bounce into the tier 2 with the amount of points together.
Oh wow, tier 2, 80 points.
He's in tier 4 or tier 3 now?
He's in tier 4.
Oh, so tier 3, the
70 points. Okay, yeah, that makes more sense.
So he's in the past 4 years, I think he hit 70 points once. So, or actually on pace for. So I don't. It's a tall order to say that he'll hit it again. Can he do it? He has the talent to do it, but recovering from the injury, that's what it's going to be.
Yeah,
he might have to adjust the way he plays.
He might.
To still be effective. Still.
And we don't know if he's going to be top line with. We assume top power play.
Yeah, but he's not a player you're drafting in your first 4 rounds of the league.
Might be a waiver wire.
Yeah, or like at
a dart throw at the end of the draft.
At the end of the draft, you want to like Nick says, you throw a dart, and he might be one that hits the middle.
So another dart throw is Tuva Teravainen.
Yes.
Now, Teravainen is the type of player that his impact is more defensively on a line than it is offensively. He is the perfect type of player to play with Bedard, in my opinion, because it'll free Bedard to do a little bit more of the offensive stuff while he has the defensive responsibility of that line. His point pace, unfortunately, he hit 69 in point pace in 21-22. So that was 3 years ago. And that was his best season since 2019. So having said that, I'm not expecting fantasy relevance from him, but another guy that maybe could be on the cusp of 60 points if he plays with Bedard the full season.
Yeah, I agree. I think, look, he's coming off. I have him projected at 57 points, which is pretty much what he was projected for last year. He's coming into a more offensive situation, I think, than he was with Carolina. Carolina was a very structured. This is how we play. You don't deviate, right? So they didn't score necessarily too many goals. So yeah, he might score a little bit more goals with Chicago, but he's also a little less well surrounded. If he's not with Bedard, then he's not as surrounded as he was with Carolina. But he is going to get that power play boost. Everything ended up balancing to pretty much status quo.
Listen, you guys said I don't think he's not more
Waiver
than
wire.
he's not more than a 60-point goal scorer. If your draft leagues really go deep, where you dress a full lineup of like 12 forwards, 6 defensemen, he might be your 12th forward drafted.
But even in a salary cap league, doesn't it? Like his salary is too high.
In a salary cap, you take him just for in case you get an injury, so you have someone to replace him that could give you some points.
Yeah, if his salary cap doesn't.
But
count.
it's not like Taylor Hall is a dart throw. This guy is a guy that I wouldn't.
He's more consistently as a waiver wire
exactly.
guy.
Like the dart throws. Bertuzzi too to me is a dart throw. I think Bertuzzi is gonna have a better season than people think. But remember, it's also these two players on a new team, new formation. So we've seen it before. Every players that go to a new team, it's
Adaptation period.
Yeah, there's adaptation. And the one thing I forgot to say about Taylor Hall is that it's a contract year for him. Contract years, usually players they throw it in there just to get that last payday, right? That 32, he wants that.
There's
one.
an extra effort. There's an extra.
So that's it. So,
guys, if I just may, sorry, you're gonna kill me, but I knew Bertuzzi was gonna be a hot topic, so I had done an extra bit of research that I wanted to mention. I want your take on it because it's gonna be very important for the listeners.
Let me talk to you.
Oh yeah, okay. Let me talk to you. Don't reach for a player. Don't reach for a player because he's going to be playing with a superstar, or you think he's going to be playing with a superstar. Hence, Tyler Bertuzzi with Connor Bedard. But what I was
Just to interrupt, AKA Connor Brown. Do you remember?
Oh my
everybody
God!
went
Yes,
crazy?
I told everyone he was going to be a flop.
Everybody went crazy to get Connor Brown in our draft.
I was one of those players.
But
I was one of those people that said, Connor Brown, you got to draft Connor Brown.
But injuries played a factor because the second half there, towards the end of the season, he picked it up. Anyhow, let's not get carried away. An interesting stat I want you guys to reflect on very quickly. Tyler Bertuzzi with the Toronto Maple Leafs played against the Panthers, who had the second best goals against average. The Bruins, who had the sixth best goals against average. And the Sabres, 11th. Tampa, 22nd. Red Wings, 24th. Sens, 26th. Habs, 28th. 4 of the teams that he played the most games against in the bottom 10 of goals against average and couldn't quite cut 60 points. He's going up against the Jets, best goals against average in the league. Dallas, 8th best goals against average in the league. Nashville 13, Blues 14, Avalanche 16, and then they have 2 teams in the 20s. Does that play a factor to you? Is that something you incorporate in your analysis when you do your projective rankings, or is that just any player can produce against any team depending on the situation?
So it's great research. It's really nitpicking, trying to find that edge, which I applaud you for.
Nice way of saying waste of time.
No. It's just that you don't know next year how many of these teams will change, right? We've seen New Jersey, for example, get new goaltending. We've seen injuries played a factor in some of those, right? Improvements from some of the other teams, internal improvements. So we don't know what the goals against average next year will look like. But yes, it is something that you could take a look at, and it's good to go deep into dives like that because it's trying to get an edge, right, on your opponent.
But 2 things.
That's why you do a podcast.
Well, like for me, it doesn't. I'm not saying it adds like 6 to 8 points, but it might add or deduct 2-3 points. Just to say, it's not much, but in the end, it could be.
So these are my things. My 2 things with that stat is that I'm playing Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm putting my number 1 goalie. I'm playing the Chicago Blackhawks. I'm putting my second goalie if it's a back-to-back. Second, If I'm playing Toronto Maple Leafs, I'm in bed by 8 o'clock. If I'm playing Chicago Blackhawks, I'm in bed at midnight. You understand? Like, players...
I don't...
players won't go into playing the Chicago Blackhawks as prepared as you are to go into play against the Toronto Maple Leafs. So that's why that stat is up in the air, because now he's playing on a no pressure, there's no pressure on Tyler Bertuzzi. Chicago Blackhawks have absolutely no pressure. So
Chicago was also the last team in the league for goals against.
Yeah, exactly.
29th in the league for goals against. So people showed up to play against Chicago. They lit them up.
They were just
because they're a bad team.
Because they're a bad team. But
you still put your backup against a bad team.
Yeah, but
that's what he's trying to say. He's like,
I'm saying, you go they don't show up.
But because they were also 32nd in goals, in total goals, Chicago. Right. With the players they got, that's going to go up.
Yeah.
So
again, a little bit too many tangents here.
I know Bertuzzi was a hot topic. We knew that going in, so that's probably going to be the only one that
it was good information.
Okay,
very good information.
Let's carry on.
Talk to us about the goalies.
Let's talk about goalies a bit here.
Oh, we skip defense.
We're going to talk about defense because you have to get up and do a proclamation soon. I'm going to tell you.
So is there a board bet on Bertuzzi?
Oh, you want to?
Yes, I was going to save it for the final thought and projection. But
man.
Okay, we'll save it for the end.
All right. So Peter Mrazek had a very year.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So actually, it's pretty impressive. His save percentage was still above 900, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
0.908 save percentage, 3.03 goals against average. Not so impressive. 56 games played. So he was the workhorse of the Chicago Blackhawks. His goals saved above expected at 5-on-5 was 0.141. Okay, keep that in mind because it was not very good, but anything above 0 is still something. It's still good. Like he would save more than was expected of him, considering the types of shots that were going against him. Okay, types of opportunity at 5-on-5. Laurent Brossoit, however, had a 0.927 save percentage, which is stellar. 2.00 goals against average, again, stellar. 23 games played only, so he's not a 1A goalie, right? His goals saved above expected at 5-on-5 was 0.657, which was second in the league for any goalie that played a minimum of 20 games played. Okay? So he was second in the league at goals saved above expected at 5-on-5, which is a phenomenal stat, which takes away, number one, it takes away the power play, right? Because you're getting shots against you all the time on the power play. And if your penalty kill isn't good, it's not the goalie's fault. And at the same time, it shows that they got somebody that has the potential to be that 1B and could really help the goaltending tandem. What do we think about this goaltending tandem going into the year?
Listen, I think this is just these two goalies are just a throw-in until Comesso and Harbaugh are ready to come in.
Okay.
I think those are you're going to be your 1As, 1Bs. To me, these two goalies have no fantasy relevancy because they play on such a bad team that they'll probably give you less points than more points in some leagues. So to me,
it depends if your league counts wins and how heavily they count wins.
Yes, exactly.
You're not expecting a lot of wins.
Yeah,
but if you're expecting a lot of saves and the league counts saves highly, these guys are going to put up saves.
Yeah, they will. But then you're going to lose on the winning stat also, right? So
it depends if the league counts.
Yeah, exactly.
That, right?
Because usually the league counts saves, wins, and then other they have three things for goalies. So you got to be careful when you draft goalies. You got to make sure you're going to be in the pluses at 2 out of those 3 stats, right? I think this is a great opportunity for Brossoit to see if he could become a number 1 goalie.
Yeah, I agree.
Look, last year Mrazek played 56 games, the most he's ever played in his career. So clearly it was a bit too much. But having Brossoit there, I think they're going to end up playing almost a 50-50. However, that being said, this is the worst team Brossoit has ever been on. So I think his numbers will naturally dip for that reason alone. And it's funny because Mrazek is like, I don't know how to explain it, but he's going to get less games and maybe less shot volume because they did get some veteran help on the back end. And he's going to get less chances to make up for bad games because he's not playing as many games. So you know how at one point we had him as a waiver wire pickup because he went through that stretch where his goals against average was ridiculous and his save percentage was so high.
Yeah.
He might not have an opportunity to have that kind of a week or two because he's playing less games. And then if Brossoit is outplaying him, then he's going to get more games. And then it's a back and forth type of thing. So I think Mrazek's numbers naturally are going to dip back to more what he's averaged to. And Brossoit will naturally dip because he plays more on a bad team.
Okay. And prospects, Nick, quick. Any prospects that come out to you that, well, obviously in dynasty leagues, there will be prospects that you should draft or have on your team, but that you think are going to start on the team and be fantasy relevant?
Well, in a dynasty league, everybody's fantasy relevant. But Korchinski basically played last year.
Yeah.
And Korchinski didn't play very well last year, but he was an 18-year-old kid playing defense in the NHL. It was a big jump.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why Chicago went out there in order to grab all these veteran defensive players is to shelter Korchinski more. Is there a chance that he plays some games in the AHL this year? There is a chance that Korchinski might play games in the AHL, so keep an eye on training camp. Keep an eye on how things go. I still think Korchinski is the offensive defenseman of the future. However, we also mentioned they just drafted Levshunov, second overall. So that might be the pairing of the future. Korchinski on the left side, Levshunov on the right side. And Levshunov is no stranger to points. He could put up points as well. I don't know if he's going to start this year right off the bat in the NHL. He might need some AHL time, and they could actually both benefit from some AHL time, if it was my opinion. I know you have a crush on Korchinski because of the fact that you own him in fantasy, so don't let that be biased. No, but I don't think that this year he'll have a very fantasy relevant year.
I think what you're saying is right. I think both those players should be in the AHL. When it comes to that, my like I said before, to me, Seth Jones is the guy to watch on this defense. I think he's gonna push up the points.
We'll get there. Lucas Reichel.
Oh, he's.
I give up on Lucas Reichel.
He played 99 games.
Yeah, so
that's why he's still technically a prospect.
Dauber says 200 games after 200 games.
So Lucas Reichel is a player that struggled last year. It's not a surprise. Maybe a surprise, but it's not. We can't sugarcoat it, right? He struggled last year. Now there's going to be a better team around him. He's going to have better players playing with him. He kind of played with nobody at some point, right? He tried a little bit with Bedard, but it was a little bit too much. First line right off the bat, it was a bit too much. I would say hold on to him because he's still very young. Until that 200 game mark, like you mentioned, I wouldn't be throwing him out to the Wolves. However, disappointing season.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he begins in the AHL, just to maybe for a confidence thing.
Could be.
Maybe he's one of those players that was given a spot instead of earning a spot too soon.
I think that he's not waiver eligible anymore. I'd have to double check.
Yeah.
But he's the most...
He signed a new contract, so I don't think he's waiver eligible anymore.
Yeah. Frank Nazar had a couple of games at the end of the season. He looked good. Do we expect Frank Nazar to play any games in the NHL this year?
Yeah, I think so. I think he'll play a few games, but I think he'll start in the AHL, especially with the signings Chicago did. I think they're sending out the message that they'd like their young kids to develop in the AHL before coming to the NHL. And so I think Frank Nazar is definitely going to start in the AHL. If they see he's on a hot streak, bring him up. Or if there's injuries, bring him up. But or else I feel he's going to start the AHL.
Okay. Thoughts?
I'd like to touch on that.
Yeah.
I think he's going to start in the NHL because he was already not given like a top line role when he came in last year with the last two games he played. So I think he's the type of player that's going to have to earn his minutes. And if he can't hang with the pros, then they'll send him down. But look for Nazar and let's say Korchinski or all these young guys. Watch out for them towards the middle of the season because Cap wages, by the way, is a new cap friendly. So there's Puckpedia. Cap wages is fantastic too. So for your listeners out there, it's exactly like cap friendly. I just want to get to Athanasiou, pending UFA after this year. Kershev, RFA. Donato, UFA. Pat Maroon, UFA. Craig Smith, UFA. What I'm getting at is that these guys are likely to be traded at some point or attempted to trade if they have any value whatsoever, which will create roster spots for these young guys.
Okay.
If they don't earn it before.
I'm predicting about 30 games for Frank Nazar, personally. I think he's going to get about 30, and the majority of them will come after the trade deadline because, like you said, a lot of these guys might be traded away by the trade deadline. Oliver Moore, I'm predicting a cup of coffee in the NHL, maybe 5 games.
Did he sign entry level?
No.
What's this? So he could go
He
back to
hasn't.
NCAA.
Yeah, I think that's what it looks like is going to happen. So it's going to be one of those cases where at the end of the year, if there's 3-4 games left, or they'll sign him, they'll waste that year to give him experience.
The only other 3 players that are dynasty relevant, but probably not relevant next year for fantasy purposes, is Mustard, best name in the draft last year. Nick Lardis. He is a offensive dynamo, goal-scoring player. He has a potential to become something. Rinzel also has the potential, but those are just throwing the names out there so you could know of them.
And the 2 goalies. The 2 prospect goalies.
And the goalies, Gajan and Comesso. So they're still, I think, ways away, but fantasy, like we just touch on the names, and those are players to look out for, right? Now, before we get to the final thought, I want you to stand up and declare for me one thing. Is Seth Jones a number 1 defenseman?
He was trending that way for a long time. But at this point, no.
He got drafted.
No.
He's getting paid like a number 1 defenseman.
He's definitely getting paid like a number 1 defenseman. He was signed to that contract when they signed, like 9 defensemen signed that, was it Nurse, Werenski, Seth Jones, I'm forgetting 1 or 2, but they all signed ridiculous $9 million contracts when they weren't worth that. No, look, I don't know if going to Chicago kind of made him dip, but he was really trending to be a number 1 defenseman when he came out of Nashville. Columbus, too, his first year, he seemed pretty good. But I don't think he's consistent and solid enough. Doesn't put up enough numbers offensively to really be that number 1 defenseman.
So his average is about a 42-point pace. In the last 2 years, it's dipped under that. I'm expecting him to maybe go back to the 40-point pace.
I have him at 39.
Okay, so you're right there with me. Is that fantasy relevant? You're going to have to check your league to see if a 40-point defenseman is value above replacement. Personally, he's most likely a replacement player. And if it's a salary cap league, unless somebody's retaining money on this player
or tanking and needs
the cap, there's no value in him unless you're getting him at half price.
50 points. I think he's my breakout player in Chicago.
You own him, right?
Yeah, but
so take it with a grain of salt, everybody. He owns the player. He's trying to sell him high.
This is going to be another board bet.
I own this player on a team that I'm rebuilding. So yes, the 9.5 million is very good on my cap. But no, I'm telling you, with the additions, with the power play being better, him getting PP1, he's going to hit 50 points this year.
Okay, final thoughts and predictions and the board bet, okay? So there was a piece by Dom Luszczyszyn in The Athletic that spoke about the offseason of every team and how much they improved their team and ranked the most improved team according to Dom Luszczyszyn's model was Chicago. With all the additions that they did, it is absolutely the most improved team from last year. However, still not a winning team.
No, not even close to a winning team.
But most improved. So take that again when you're doing your research on Chicago and Chicago players. Understand that this is supposed to be a team on the up and up. They're still going to be rebuilding next year. They're still going to be rebuilding the year after that. So keep that in mind when you're choosing players from that team. Now, Bertuzzi, I'm going to tell you this. Let's do an over-under. You're going to go under because you already told me you will. But 53-point pace. Over or under?
How much?
53 points. That's his career average.
Under.
Okay, so I'll take the over on that. And that's going to be...
We're 3, though. How's that going to work?
I'll take over 57 points.
Okay, Let's do that. Let's do
Yes, I own Tyler Bertuzzi in my league.
the truth comes out. So, put Bertuzzi. Let's give ourselves 4 or 5 points. So from 47 to 53.
I'll do 45 to 50.
Okay, 45 to 50. I'll do 50 to 55, and he'll do 55 to 60. If he ends up getting more than that, it's not Price is Right.
Oh, what do you mean?
No, wait. So I'm doing 46 to 50.
Okay.
51 to 55.
Yeah, I haven't projected him close to 60 technically.
And 56 to 60 Vince.
All right.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun board bet. All right.
Can't wait till the first game.
I
he
won
gets a hat-trick.
I won our 2 board bets last year, and
You
the
still owe
third
me a
one
steak.
that's not wasn't recorded. I won that one too.
Still owe me a steak.
Yes, before the season starts, we're gonna go out for dinner.
Okay,